Well, welcome to Red Chair. Today we have Jon Staenberg from Agate Hound Fund, founder. Jon, great to see you.
Great to
Been a
see
friend
you.
for many years, coming to Lisbon for, many years, 20 times, I think,
Yeah.
plus. Tell us your story. How did it all start?
Well, coming to Lisbon was revelatory. I was thinking about options, if you will, for the United States. This was 8 years ago at this point.
Right.
And I've always loved Europe. And people were telling me that Portugal was the place, And I had never been. And I came and I fell in love with it. And I love that I spend my time between Seattle and San Francisco.
Right.
So, of course, the Red Bridge here
Right.
made me feel right at home. And I've gotten to know the people and you and many of the other investors here. And I have to say, it's just a very comfortable place and a
Welcome,
place
right?
welcoming. And it's maybe doesn't get the recognition of other major European cities, but it has everything. And so for me, it's been just wonderful coming here and seeing friends. And my plan is over time to spend more time here.
Wonderful.
I also am super interested in Europe as the next frontier for what I'm doing now. So for me, coming to Europe is in part starting the journey of potentially setting up a fund here and potentially helping pave the way for more entrepreneurs to buy businesses, which we'll talk about.
Tell me, how did your career start? You went obviously to Stanford.
I did. I like to share that with people that went to school in Cambridge.
It's a bit of a rivalry.
Bit of a rivalry. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's important for two reasons. One is I grew up in a very sort of middle class entrepreneurial family.
Okay.
Both my parents were entrepreneurs. And so the dinner table conversations were about business. And so I was always comfortable with that. And I grew up in Omaha, and that's important because of Warren Buffett, who, by the way, if you haven't read his most recent letter that came out yesterday, it's incredible. It's his last letter.
I'll have to read that.
And the man is so full of wisdom.
Absolutely. It's incredible.
He has really guided my life in many, many ways, including what I'm doing today. And we used to go to his house because my mom and his former wife were very good friends.
Oh.
But Warren Buffett wasn't Warren Buffett then.
Right.
He was a neighbor. But over the years, I continue to go to the annual meetings in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're obviously a shareholder.
I am a shareholder. I wish I was a larger shareholder. I wish my parents had been shareholders.
Right.
But Warren talks about investing in a way very few people do and has executed on it in a way very few people do. And the fact is, over some 50 plus years, he's been able to annually return over 20%. And in a world that is all about unicorns and decacorns and moonshots,
yes,
he reminds us that if you can just
fundamentals, right?
Fundamental.
Yes.
And if you can just compound and double, you end up with a lot of money.
Right.
And the magic of compounding is such an important lesson for all of us that we forget it. It's not sexy. It just keeps going.
Yes.
And so anyway, I grew up in Omaha. I wanted to go as far away from Omaha as I could, and not because I still love Omaha. I could live in Omaha, but
Warren Buffett also tried that.
He did. That's right.
And then he came back.
and
his autobiography is in fact incredible. Right?
Incredible.
It's an incredible.
It's such a great. I've read it twice.
Yeah.
And I just want to see the world. I'm a traveler at heart, and I'm curious. And so I was either going to go East Coast or West Coast. And so I ended up at Stanford. And honestly, Stanford also wasn't Stanford then. The schools have taken on bigger than life kind of branding, and ended up there and just opened my eyes to the world.
What were you studying at Stanford?
Well, I changed my major 7 times. And I don't know how anyone at 17 or 18 knows what they want to study.
No,
really,
absolutely.
it really is. And Stanford is so good at allowing you to pursue passions and
Yes.
to try things without a lot of downside. And so ultimately I did.
Which year was this, John?
It's you're aging me. Unfair.
You should be proud. You should be proud.
I have a undergraduate from 1982.
82.
I have a master's in Asian studies from 83.
Okay.
And then I have the MBA from 88.
88. Okay. Wonderful.
And if my mother had allowed me, I would have gotten my law degree, but she said,
Enough.
No mas, enough. But it's my happy place and I still go back there. But so that was in 1982. And even then, even though it was early, Silicon Valley was a thing.
It was definitely a thing in the 80s already.
Right. But you had to kind of be aware of it. It wasn't venture capital like we know it today, right?
Right.
And so, but being around that, it bled into the university. The guest
funds in the early 80s or the
Kleiner. Kleiner was
already huge.
Right. NEA, Kleiner.
NEA, yes.
Foundation. Sequoia was around. Benchmark was certainly big then. August Capital, if you remember them.
Yes, August Capital is a great brand also.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, just to jump to Sandhill, I didn't really know Sandhill until business school because the guest speakers would start coming in. The thing that I'm sure most people don't realize is venture capital was in that little segment. And that was really it in the world.
In the whole world, yes.
And you could literally walk up and down Sandhill Road, wouldn't take you much time, and go door to door. And I got to know everybody. I literally could just walk into an office and say hello because it was so small and collegial and club-like that everybody knew everybody.
But they already had the vision to get companies to a global level, at least the US.
For sure.
Sort of.
For sure.
Incredible level, right?
Yeah. And I think there was a mindset that we were changing the world, that they were changing the world, that, we think about it today differently, that, okay, we're going to create scaled companies. We're all going to get rich. It was, yes, of course, there was money to follow, but it was a different feeling. It was really like, we can improve society. And we're jumping around, but I have to say, so after business school, I had a couple job offers. In fact, they came down to 2, just as a side note. One was at Microsoft, where I went. I'll talk about that. The other was with Berkshire Hathaway.
Oh.
So I got a job offer from Agate, who is one of the top 3 leaders now at Berkshire. And that was in New York, and Microsoft was in Seattle. And they were both great.
Amazing offers, right?
Amazing offers.
Because even then, Berkshire Hathaway was already huge. It was already incredible.
And their insurance business was really important to the foundation of what they were doing. And I see Ajit, and he ribs me from time to time, like, you should have taken the job. But
you didn't do that well. Badly at Microsoft.
It was a good choice. So I ended up going up to Microsoft, and I remember Bill saying over and over, our mission is to put a computer on every desk. And at the time, this
is mid-80s.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that, we felt like we needed to go figure out how to do that. And that didn't just mean putting a box. It meant making software that was so usable and easy that, of course, it would be the cornerstone of everybody's life.
How many employees did Microsoft have?
2,000.
2,000. It was
2,000, which, by the way, included manufacturing.
Right.
Like people making discs, right? So it really wasn't even 2,000.
Right.
And back then, they hired not by expertise, because nobody had expertise. We were creating new jobs. What did it mean to be a channel marketing manager for box software? Like, we had to just figure it out. And that was truly the joy. And even though it was 2,000 people, it was a startup.
Yeah.
And that mindset. And it's interesting to me, I literally had a cot in my office and more than one night slept there. And not because any other reason that I was passionate about getting the job done and forging ahead. And they hired on competitiveness, tenacity, and smarts. And I remember going to that interview, and they put me through 16 different interviews where they would say, okay, this is a real case study. We're trying to figure out what to do with Excel right now. What would you do? And you actually felt in the interview process that you were helping think through the actual
problems. It's not a theoretical thing.
No, this is not theoretical.
This is like, what shall we do?
Like,
any
and
ideas?
It was truly, yeah. And by the way, one of the guys, this guy Ron, I remember saying, well, I really think you should. He goes, that's just a stupid idea. And I'm like, what? But I appreciated, like, come on, let's go. And so it was the interviews that hooked me. And so I ended up there for 5 years. I'm not a great larger company person.
Right.
I don't deal with bureaucracy or politics very well. But it was an amazing 5 years.
Was Bill Gates a very different person from what he is today? From what you remember?
No.
No.
I mean, here's some...
Was he more cutthroat and now he's more kind of like, let's save the world kind of thing, or not really?
I mean,
it was the same
Bill goes deep on subjects.
For sure.
Right? And I remember Bill would be one of the first people to arrive and one of the last people to leave. I was taught early, emulate the people that we work with, right? So I got there early. He'd have his Porsche, the convertible Porsche, and on the passenger side seat, there would be literally 20 books on coding. It was crazy.
And
like
his date.
And he's running, right? His date, exactly. And
coding books.
And he was reading those. I'm like, you're running this amazing company and you have time to read coding books.
Yes.
And he was a technical guy. In fact, Bill would win the coding contest at Microsoft amongst all the developers. People don't realize, like, that's incredible. And he's running this company.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. That's another book.
And
his own story is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And people can judge him for however. I actually view Bill as a hero.
Yeah.
A complete inspiration.
And inspiration.
And what he's giving back. But being around that tenacity. Here's the thing. One other story about Bill, and there's lots. My freshman English teacher, Dennis Mathis, was brought on to Microsoft for one reason, to teach a class, for one reason. Because you would go into reviews with Bill, and inevitably, consistently, and every time, he would ask the question you hadn't thought of. And so Dennis was brought in to help you think through the questions Bill was going to ask. Think about that.
To prep you.
Yeah. Critical thinking. Like which is another statement about Bill.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, from a very young age, it's just like Warren Buffett, right?
Right.
These were kids that were incredible. I mean, geniuses you could see it from the age of 5, 6, 7,
Yes.
10.
Yes.
They were outstanding, right? And it's just the details of the stories that are in those books. I've never met Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, right? So if you read those books, you're like, oh my God, I mean, these are exceptional people that were gifted with a mind that is so different from everybody else, right?
Yeah. Well, Bill reported, and I believe it has a photographic memory.
Right.
That helps.
It helps.
But it's...
And so does Warren for sure.
For sure.
All the stock prices from the age of like 7 or 8, right?
Right. And both of them have a competitive streak.
Yes.
And that has served them very well. I mean, Obviously, they both love bridge, right? They play together.
Yes.
They love learning, right? And they love the notion of how do we make people better? And they both have a different approach to that. But
they were both in the right country, right? I mean,
they would both say that for sure.
Imagine being Bill Gates and being born in North Korea.
I think about this all the time. This all the time.
Or in Africa, in the middle
the
of nowhere.
number of geniuses we don't even know about.
So many geniuses.
And I think AI has the potential to really bring some of that to the forefront. And that's exciting to me. We don't even know what we've missed out on because people didn't have access.
No, of course.
I mean, honestly, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and she has no way to understand really how privileged she is, even today.
Yes.
To be a white American. I mean, we are just given this glide path if we want to take it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I was lucky enough early on, for I don't know why, not to recognize it quite that way, but to understand.
You're given this chance.
Right? I've been given an unbelievable
chance. Country with the right family.
Yeah.
And
encouraged.
Sort of.
Right.
Yes. I think most kids don't understand that, right?
It's
I think it's hard because you're young and you're like, oh, am I really that lucky? I would say it's lucky.
Well, no perspective.
They'd have no perspective, right?
How could you?
If you are born in another country, in a different setting and so on, you might be born with the same brain, but you just not be able to use it.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's 100% right.
Yes.
And, it's a series of things, the encouragement, the people around you that you choose to be with.
Yes.
Right? But all of this is a good discussion leading up to what I'm doing today. But back then...
So you were there for 5 years?
5 years. And I actually came out of Stanford Business School and I knew that I wanted to do venture capital.
Okay.
And I knew it because it fits my personality. It's constantly learning. It's constantly meeting with amazing entrepreneurs. You could make some money doing it.
Right. There's easier ways to make money, of course.
There are easier, less stressful ways to make money. But I was never going to be, in Japan where they call it the salary man. I was never going to be that person. I wasn't going to be at Boeing for 40 years.
Right.
There's no way. I probably was an undiagnosed.
It's a personality thing. I'm also like that. I just can't do it. I have to look at many different things at the same time. The brain always thinking of things, different things, different stimulus.
Right. I always say I'm the luckiest person. I get to meet every day with people sharing their incredible ideas with me, and I get to hear about them and ask questions about it.
Right.
It's like going to a new museum every single day.
That's right.
And
for curious people, it's an incredible job, right? It was like, oh, tell me more.
Right. Right. And it encouraged me to be a better person because if I wanted to be in the conversations, what was I going to bring to the conversation? So I was a competitive tennis player growing up. And so I loved the battle. Right. And so this doing venture, but you remember in the late 80s, I literally would have to say what venture capital was.
Of course.
I mean, people would really look at me like, venture cap? What? Wait, you lose on almost all of your investments?
Are you crazy?
And so that was exciting for me. So I knew I was at Microsoft for 5 years, and I said,
and then you did the MBA? Or
no, right after
the MBA.
Right. And the reason I went to Microsoft really is I wanted to do venture out of Stanford, and this guy Woody House in Seattle said to me, "Don't go do venture. Get a job.
First,
get 5 years of experience."
Yes.
So you actually understand.
I think it was a great advice.
Great advice.
For you to be able to advise other people, you must have done it somehow. Otherwise, it's just theoretical.
It's all theoretical, right? Ivory tower. And so I did. And almost 5 years to the day,
you don't need to be a founder, but you need to have some job experience.
Well, you've got it. What's it mean to hire? What's it mean to fire? What's it mean to live with your strategies and see it roll out? See some work, some not work.
Right.
Of course. So 5 years to the day, I said, this is great. Microsoft's terrific, but I want to go do venture. And so I left Microsoft and went down a path of building a
You
reputation.
kept some stock, hopefully.
I kept some stock, although I always like to say the first house I bought, I bought for $89,000.
My God, those were the days.
But that $89,000
was expensive
most
at the time.
expensive $89,000.
It was expensive because you lose all the stock.
That's right. I mean, I'm not going to say here what that would be worth today.
Yes. You could buy the whole of Lisbon.
So, but I knew I wanted to do venture. And so I went down a path, and I ultimately built the trust of people, went out and found individual deals. I showed them the deals. After a while, people said, why don't you do a fund? I did a first fund. I did a second fund. Ended up doing a third fund. And then subsequent. And so that's 30, we're here 35 plus years later. Was a general partner in 3 funds, venture partner in 3 other funds, angel invested in hundreds of deals. I've been around the block.
Which were your sort of best deals or most famous deals?
To ask that. That's funny. Well, I will say that my favorite deal is not why you think it's my favorite deal. Well, let me start with my first deal, and then I'll answer your question. My first deal was a company called Evite. Do you remember Evite? The electronic invitation. Evite. And
this is like in the 90s.
Yeah.
It rings a bell now that you mentioned it.
Yeah. People still use it today, actually. And that deal is fun because they were like, well, what are you going to add? What value are you going to add? And I said, I'm so committed to this deal. I'm going to buy a Volkswagen Bug and wrap it in Evite. And I have 26 years later, that car, it's my only car. It's got polka dots and says Evite on it. That's how committed I was to that. And that's an interesting story because I was one of the first investors, angel investor, seed, what we called seed then. We called it A, actually. And we had a Netscape, if you remember them, Excited Home. They made an offer to buy us. And it would have been a life-changing event for me, of course, at the valuation I was in at. And the not to be named well-known venture fund who had come in later was like, no. This is going to be worth $1 billion.
So no selling.
Even though there was literally no economic model. Right? And I'm like, and this is a good example. This is a good example of the misalignment sometimes between the angels and the institutions. And that's an important point because I'm going to come back to it.
And even between the types of institutions.
That's for sure.
We see that all the time now with VCs, private equity, and sometimes hedge funds. It is not a good mix.
No, it's not. And let me just sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. But in the old days of venture capital, remember what I said? You could walk up Sand Hill Road and everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
That mattered because you wouldn't hurt the relationship with another friend if you know them.
Of course.
You would treat them differently.
Right. As you respect and mutual respect.
And how you treated ongoing rounds.
Yes.
Because you knew you had to do more deals with them.
I think you still have a bit of that in Europe.
You probably do.
I think in the US, we definitely notice that, if they don't care, about the relationship part.
It's completely different.
It's sort of like, I'll kill you for half a percentage point. And if we don't do anything together ever in life, whatever. Yeah. And that is not exactly like that in Europe yet.
Right.
Thank God.
Yeah, because Europe's younger in the maturation and and it's smaller and people know each other. So, yeah.
We all know each other.
And we've lost that in venture.
Yes.
We really have. You asked me one of my favorite deals. There's a number of fun deals in there. I'll just tell you one more. And this is a story about relationship again. And I care so much about relationship. It has really driven most of where I've gone. This is a story of me Do you remember a guy by the name of Roger McNamee? Does that name? Okay. Roger was one of the very first public tech investors. He had a fund investing, I think he was at T. Rowe Price. I may have it slightly wrong, but Roger went on to start Silver Lake.
Oh, right.
And then he did the next fund with Bono, and Roger's a well-known, he wrote a book about Mark Zuckerberg that wasn't so nice to Mark. I think it was called Zucked. Anyway, Roger's a friend, and we would talk from time to time. And I hadn't seen Roger for a little bit, and I was at the JP Morgan tech conference. And this was when the dot-com bubble had
deflated.
Nice way to say it. And I was in the middle of my fund, and I was stressed because I'd made a number of dot-com bets, and it was looking bad.
Yeah, everything was looking terrible.
Really bad, right? And I'm like, how am I going to save my fund? I've got to really think through this. And I say to Roger, are you seeing anything interesting? And he says, Jon, come here. I have found the best idea I've ever had. And he goes on to tell me, and I am salivating, and I'm like, are you telling me because you're going to let me in on this deal? Or are you just, holding it out yet? And it ends up being, long story short, a very well-known transaction of taking Seagate private and then public again.
Right.
And at the time, now it's incredible that actually Seagate is one of the top 3 performing U.S. stocks in the last 12 months. Because people didn't figure out that with all this AI computing, you're going to need storage. But at the time, we ended up investing when it was $3 a share. It's over $200 now. And it saved my fund. So for me, thank you, Roger.
Relationships.
The relationship. It really changed my life. So those are a couple of the deals.
Very interesting. And so moving fast forward.
Sure.
So what are you doing now?
Yeah. So now I'm doing what I would almost call venture capital 2.0. About 8 years ago, I told you relationships are important to me. I didn't have the same relationships in venture that I once had. People were aging out,
right.
Newcomers. And also the other thing that I always think about in my career and for companies I invest in, what's your edge? What's your moat? What's your differentiation, right? And I didn't feel like my edge in venture was still relevant. In fact, my edge at the very beginning of doing venture was, I will be your Microsoft expert. Because back in the day, people actually cared from a competitive standpoint, a partnering standpoint. So I was the bridge from Seattle to San Francisco. I literally use that tagline, but I had no edge. So 8 years ago, and I'm like Warren Buffett. I hope to work till I'm 95. And so I'm not a golfer. And so I said, what am I going to do? And I went back to Stanford. I went back to a professor named Irv Grousbeck. And Irv is Warren Buffett for the thing that I do now, something called search funds. Not a great name, and I'll explain it in a second. Mm-hmm. But Irv, if you ever get a chance, watch the last lecture by Irv Grousbeck.
Okay.
Such a wise man, such a caring person. Literally, the two of them, Warren and Irv, are very similar in their approach to life and very successful. Anyway, I went back to Irv. Irv was my professor. And when I was at Stanford Business School, he invented this thing called, at the time they called it search funds. Today we call it ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the concept where instead of going and taking a job in industry, instead of going to McKinsey or JP Morgan, or these days Google or Amazon,
right,
you are going to raise a pool of money. Back then it was search fund, but it's not a fund. It's just a pool of money,
right,
to provide living wages, but under market, quite frankly,
yes,
for 2 years while you search to find
Come-
and acquire a $2 to $5 million EBITDA boring mom and pop business. Pardon me.
Which you
That
can
could be
take over.
it could be a plumber. It could be an electrician.
Right.
It could be, it could be porta potties, storage.
Right.
There's hundreds of these types of businesses. Thousands, right? They're the fabric of most of the countries of society.
Yeah.
And so I had classmates that did it. I was hell-bent on doing venture, so I didn't do it. But years ago, I went back to Irv. I said, how is this thing doing? He said, it's doing pretty well. By the way, Irv did so well, he bought the Boston Celtics. That's how well he did. And I started doing the research. And a great resource, if you haven't read it, is the Stanford Primer and the Stanford Study, which are easy to find. And the headline is, over the last 40 years, ventures averaged around 14%, depending on how you cut, slice, and dice. 14% annual return. Stock market in the U.S., about 8.5. Buffett at 20, we talked about. Search funds, net returns for 40 years, annually 35%.
Right. Smaller companies, big improvements.
And buying at multiples down here and selling at multiples up here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But it's a playbook.
You have to like it, right? I mean, you have to like taking over the plumber and actually expanding the plumbing.
It's not
thing.
sexy.
It's not sexy.
Not sexy,
right.
Not great cocktail conversation.
But it's an amazing
but
returner.
But not only is it
amazing,
it's a great path to entrepreneurship.
Right.
Not everybody is a founder of a tech company.
No, of course not. No.
Right? Not everybody has the new idea.
Particularly right now, right?
Especially right now.
You really need to know your stuff. I mean.
Right. And there are people who say, I actually like managing. I like running a company.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a new idea. So let me take a pretty good company and make it better.
Yes.
And so we are buying companies that have 3 years of increasing profitability. So we know the product market fit is there.
And you're doing this in the U.S.
North America right now, mostly U.S. But the exciting thing at the beginning of this conversation, I said, is Europe is next. It's obvious. This came out of the business schools. This came out of Stanford and Harvard.
Yes.
So up until 13 years ago, only Stanford and Harvard taught ETA.
Yes.
Today, there are something like 30 plus business schools, graduate schools of business in America teaching it. But now in the last few years in Europe, you have INSEAD, you have ISA, you have IA, you have LBS, you have, it's starting to flourish here.
Yes.
I
remember having a class about that with Josh Lerner.
Yeah.
At HBS.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was at Harvard 3 days ago.
Yes.
Right. For the Harvard Search Fund Conference, ETA conference. It's never had this many people.
Yeah.
They're turning people away. It's having a moment. And why? Baby boomers. Baby boomers have to exit out their companies.
Yeah.
Culturally, children are not as inclined to take over the
Yes, it's a generational issue.
Generational issue.
So there's an opportunity.
Massive.
And the private equity funds, these companies are too small.
Too small. They don't want to.
You need people like you and others that come in, take it over for a decent amount, which is a retirement for these people.
Oh, for sure.
And then you just sort of bring them up to a next level and sell them to the private equity guys.
And that's right. And they're happy for you to do the dirty work, the hard work, professionalize it, get it slightly bigger, and put it onto their platform. So if you think about it, the baby boomer demographic is as true in Europe as it is in the United States. And so name the country, I was in Germany for Bits and Pretzels this year. People are starting to talk about it. A lot of these countries realize that they're going to have to just shut the doors of these small businesses if nobody takes over.
Yes.
And that's the massive opportunities. But you can't go in eyes closed. You have to understand how hard it is. Small businesses misrepresent. They're taking money out for other things.
Of course.
Employees, culture.
Yes.
Is the CEO have all the relationships?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of issues.
Yes.
But thankfully,
it's fun.
There's lots of resources today to get up to speed, to learn how to do this, you can go to a business school. There's podcasts, there's YouTube videos, and it's an amazing opportunity. So we built Agate Hound Fund, which is the only institutional fund of funds investing in search. Small fund. We're raising Fund II for U.S. investors. But I'm looking to Europe and saying, maybe we're a little early, but in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it's coming.
It's happening, yes.
And it's super exciting.
It already exists, but there's more and more people,
of course,
interested in this. Wonderful.
And it reminds me exactly of what venture was 35 years ago. Everybody knows everybody. We're collaborative. There's alignment. And the entrepreneurs are gritty as hell.
Yes.
And I'm having the time of my life.
Wonderful. Jon, thank you so much for sharing. That was super, super interesting. We could stay here for another 2 or 3 hours talking about all the great experience you've had. So thank you so much for coming.
It's been great.
To Indico. Always good to see you here in Lisbon.
Great to see you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Red Chair. Thank you.